welcome. You're watching Editor's Take on Money Control. I'm Sakshi Batra. Well, 2019 was a year that was moving in the positive direction for startups. I say that because we actually saw some of the big milestones being touched for the top of the rung startups. Also, some regulatory changes are big over there. And all those things we'll actually just discuss about in this conversation. Joining me today is my colleague, Sunny Sen. Thanks a lot, Sunny, for joining
Sakshi.
in. Season's greetings to you. Happy New Year.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you too.
Thank you so much. I want to begin by actually looking back. Let's start off our discussion by actually doing a flashback and a review of the year 2019. How has it been according to you for the startup sector?
So overall, the startup space did well. So the best way to perhaps capture this is by rattling out some numbers and how what did those numbers mean for the startup industry.
Sure.
So today, India has about 10,000 startups. Of that, 1,300 startups were added only last year, in the first 3 quarters of last year. The last quarter numbers are still to be out. 8 new companies became unicorns, which include B2B SaaS companies like Dhruva, Icertis, and Freshworks. So Freshworks has been is the most valued SaaS company in India. The startup ecosystem also witnessed about 60,000 new direct jobs and about 1.3 to 1.8 lakh indirect jobs that were created. Investments grew by 5% to $4.4 billion in the first 3 quarters. But if you look at the Paytm investment, which came in December, it was it was $1 billion of investment that came in by existing and new investors. If you take that investment in consideration, so easily we will have more than $6 billion of investment in 2019. So that's the investment scenario. Even if you look at the early stage investment, that has seen a steep rise. So 70% of rise in early stage investments to about $1.6 billion. So early stage investments has been a problem in India. So true. In 2019, perhaps we see that shift coming through, where people are more willing to spend, invest in early stage startups and take them through that journey. So we are seeing that happen. But overall, the startup industry has seen a moderate growth. So some big ticket investments have happened, but there are some big failures also that was there. So ShopClues which was once a unicorn, that's not a unicorn, and that was sold at $46 million to a Japanese company. So there were other fallouts too. So while ShopClues Snapdeal managed to claw back some market share, but it's still a very fledgling e-commerce company. Paytm Mall, which was once pegged as the real competitor for Amazon and Flipkart, that never took off. So that has happened. So overall it has been a moderate year for startups, but
certainly more on the positive side. So that is something that we'll have to give it to the startup sector. But there is some big regulatory change that all of us in the watching this space have been watching for. There were some big corrections in the angel tax, which actually came in as a relief for the sector as well. But do you think the changes that have been done address all the concerns that were there for the startup ecosystem, or are there concerns that still remain?
There are certain changes that happened which are a boost, but but if I look at the entire space and were all problems solved, that hasn't happened yet. But definitely at the angel tax level, that was a big fillip for growth. That is a big fillip for growth, because the startups will be exempted from angel tax, and they won't be charged tax on that anymore. Earlier, people thought that the investments were made by wealthy people, big companies. That is why they should be taxed. But if you look at the startups, so they don't make money the first 3-4 years. Some don't make money for 10 years, right? And the failure rate in startup industry is very high. About 85 to 90% of startups fail, and they cease to exist beyond a certain point of time. So, and if you start taxing those startups early on, then the failure rates are only expected to increase. So that is something that's a big good change. Also, the definition of startups have changed. So earlier it was either you 7 years old or 25 crores of revenue. That has gone up to 10 years old or 100 crore in revenue.
That also is a breather.
That also is a breather, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Apart from this, there's one thing that all of us are watching out for is to see the e-commerce policy really taking shape. When is it likely to see the light? And do you think in the initial part or the H1 of 2020, there's going to be some movement over there?
I feel that the second, the later part of the H1 is where we will see the policy coming out. That is the second quarter. The later part of the second quarter is when the e-commerce policy is likely to come.
Okay.
And that it's been there. It's been there on the table for pretty long.
Right. Apart from this, there's one other company that has been actually hogging all the limelights right now, and the big concerns, and that is OYO, the hotel startup.
Yes.
OYO, which is right now in troubled waters. There's foreign media press writing about how operational policies are not good. There are bad people in the company. Do you think all of that is going to impact its operations in India?
So OYO is not just viewed from a different lens by international companies, but if you look at what the coverage on OYO by Indian media has also not been very favorable for the company.
Okay. Yeah.
So there was this huge backlash from hotel owners. So that was widely covered by Indian media.
Right,
And that is primarily because OYO is a SoftBank invested company, and we have seen SoftBank itself under the scanner
It's a blue-eyed boy of SoftBank for
yes,
sure.
and Ritesh Agarwal is pegged as one of the best founders SoftBank has in its startup portfolio. So that's not going down well with the company. But overall, but there is no smoke without fire. So if you look at the way OYO has functioned, it early on changed. It was first a hotel aggregator, then it became a franchisee and a leasing company, and it has done a lot of flip-flops in its own operational model. But to say that it will completely alter, it will need to alter its operational or operations, or there will be policies around how companies are operated, I don't think so that will happen anytime soon.
Absolutely. Last question to you then, Sunny. I wanted to ask you about the outlook on the year 2020 now that we are here, and what are the big startups that you're looking at in this year?
Right. So crystal ball gazing is very difficult, actually. But if I look at 2020, the way it will look, investments will be a problem this year because the global economy is not looking good.
Right.
So that is there, and then there is this whole regulations around startups, be it the zero MDR regime where payment companies won't make money, be it the capping of the cab fees. All of that is pretty worrisome. So and the entire data privacy thing. So where you can store data, where you cannot store data, what you can do with data, what you can't do with data. That is also pretty confusing right now for a lot of startups.
There's a lot of uncertainty around that space.
There is a lot of uncertainty around that space. So these are the three things. It certainly seems like we are in a China-like situation where everything is regulated, right?
Yeah.
So the growth of Indian startups has been because there was a little bit of freedom around how startups can grow. So that is something which I feel will be a problem. But overall, I see B2B SaaS companies like I mentioned about Dhruva, like I mentioned about iCertis.
Yeah.
We also have something Radius High, which was the first unicorn of 2020 in the first week of 2020. So I expect a lot of B2B SaaS companies making a lot of good announcements this year.
And fintech companies?
And fintech companies. If you leave the payments business, which is the PhonePe, some parts of Paytm, Google Pay.
Yeah.
So there I see a lot of investments coming in because lending and financial services otherwise is a big space where people would like to put their money in. The other company which I wanted, the space which I wanted to talk about is the food delivery space.
Yeah.
Uber Eats going out, Zomato buying Uber Eats, and that completely shifts the equation of the industry. So it will be Zomato versus Swiggy now, two large companies in that space, and we'll have to watch it.
All
wash that
right.
out.
Okay. Thanks a lot, then, Sunny, for sharing all those insights on the startup sector. There's a whole lot of hope again in the year 2020, although there'll be some challenges to be met on the investments and payments front. But that we'll have to wait and watch out to see how it really pans out in the year 2020. Thanks a lot for joining us in this edition of Editor's Take, and do stay logged on to moneycontrol.com for more news and updates. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.